I'm Dane Rose, and thank you for all of you who are joining me for the entire year in this project to optimize growth and well-being. This is week 35 with a strong recommendation that as these build on one another in both priority and often reference, that you watch the year in order. What I want to look at in this week is how do we tell whether or not a given path of growth is a good one for us. And the first thing that I want to say is that we want to consider who we will have to become to pursue a different path. And so the first question is, will it require me to grow more than XYZ? Will the path that we're considering necessitate that we become someone more than we currently are in order to realize that particular path, to achieve that particular goal? Which leads directly to the next question of, is that someone I want to be? For example, I dropped out of Toastmasters after reaching a certain level of competency in speaking because the emphasis on speaking and timing within my Toastmasters group superseded the emphasis on listening and content. So there would be people with incredibly meaningful things to say that would be interrupted because they were 5 seconds late, and zero attention was being paid to the content of the talk, while they would be critiqued on timing. In other words, timing was elevated above content. And while there's certainly situations where that is necessary, most of these are artificially created situations. And in a situation like this, for example, I'd much rather finish a thought than, be cut off. And so I felt that this was training me to disregard content over timing. And it bothered me when people's feelings were getting the message that they were not important. All that was important was timing. And within the self-defined limits of a Toastmaster presentation, as clearly organizing your thoughts and reducing them to a certain amount of time, that could seem like perfectly logical. But there was no mandate within the protocol of speaking to actually share something meaningful. So this didn't get measured. It was format over emotion. You always grow what gets measured. I'd say it's safe to say that everyone in my Toastmasters group learned that emotion, meaning, etc., was less important than timing. That's not the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where timing is considered, but that emotions matter more, because I think that leads to stronger relationships. And so I went to learn and certainly improved my skills. However, at the point where I noticed myself becoming more chauvinistic in the truer sense of the word that I referred to earlier in the year, I wanted to withdraw. So will it require me to grow more? Is that someone I want to grow to be? This is particularly useful in relationships. So I love my current relationship, in which I've grown more than in almost any other relationship. I've changed more to learn to be a loving partner with my sweetheart. And so great, change is good, growth is good. But more importantly, I like the me that I am becoming more than I liked the me I was before. Because with any change, keep in mind, it's not a, it's not in many cases an infinite program. So for something to go up, in many cases, something else has to go down. In this case, timing, efficiency going up, emphasis on emotion going down. Another thing is, will it empower me? Will the skills, the growth, etc., the net result of going down this path leave me in a more empowered place than I was in before? Would it leave me in a more empowered place? And this is a valuable determiner, because there are many situations where, it's hard to tell. I think particularly once we climb, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, beyond security, beyond survival, beyond belonging, beyond esteem, when we're starting to reach into self-actualization and move towards that final step of self-transcendence, will it empower me? And leave me, or in this case, the future me, will the future me, as a result of going down this path, be in a stronger position than before? And I use this a lot when I spend money, because there's all kinds of things to buy, and there's often a certain amount of uncertainty. Like, I'm not sure what I'll decide for next year, or this, that, or the other. But if something empowers me, for example, the purchase of the Note 8 phone, one of the things I like the most about it is that you pull out the thing, the pen, and on a completely blank screen that pops up immediately, you can write up to 200 pages. And you just keep scrolling down. And my old phone could only do one page, and I would sometimes run out of notes. And the broken thought from opening the phone, clicking into the app, going into the other note, trying to expand it, would lose little bits of inspiration and creativity, or I just wouldn't finish it. I'd cram it into a page, giving myself the message that whatever idea I had, it had to fit into one page, because there was no other page. And this is the way that technology and environment limits us, much like Toastmaster. If a bit of technology says you've only got one page to write on with ease, much like Twitter, everything gets condensed into these tiny little notes. And I wanted a little bit more flexibility. At the same time, it gives me a backup phone device and several more options for filming, etc., which I bought the Note prior to doing this whole project. And one of the nice things about having two phones is that this often stays in the tripod, since it's kind of a backup phone. But I'm doing a lot of videoing, And it's that reduction in friction, the fact that this is always charged on the tripod, that reduction in friction actually, I think, increases the pleasure and actually maybe adds about 20 to 50% to my output, which is fun in an area that this, for example, the question whether or not to do this project at all, will it require me to grow more? Yes, it required me to learn, new camera settings, fiddle around with lighting, required me to, work with some new apps, required me to do a drawing, that drawing that you see at the beginning of everything. That was something I drew on the Note 8 and had fun learning, the drawing app. And is it someone I want to be? Absolutely. And it's a challenge because, you are the determiner as to whether I succeed in the secondary part of that goal, which is to have a positive impact. And it's not the end. It's an experiment. It's a growth experiment to learn from, to see what works and what doesn't work. And so I'm giving it my all. I like who I become doing this as opposed to just going out and trying to make some more money. Does it empower me? I think yes, because getting comfortable in a visual medium as we move into this, highly information saturated world, getting comfortable with ideas. I'm practicing ideas for the first time in many cases, and I'm building them out. And what happens, what I've learned over the last couple of years from several of these types of projects, is that ideas get a little crisper, and it's sometimes easier to practice without interruption and have a sense of then how that idea could be condensed if it was a shorter conversation or not. But I don't like to take that shortcut initially. I want to honor the idea and kind of let it run its course. And the final question I encourage you to consider is, will it balance me? And going back again to this project here, I'm doing a lot of meditation. There's an incredible amount of unstructured space in this 4-month bliss of an oasis of complete structurelessness in my 4-month Thai vacation. And so this actually is the only point in my day when I explore and develop ideas along, anything close to this line. And so does it balance me? As someone raised in the West and used to having more of these conversations, and spending this wonderful time, in a beautiful country where this kind of conversation doesn't occur most of the time, and certainly not with the Thais. It does bring a certain balance, so I don't totally lose the left brain connection as I'm reaping all the gifts of the right brain. So I'm actually at a point, today where I'm looking at, whether or not to, create an app to help landscape professionals develop life hacks that have worked very well for me. The data seems to suggest that what I'm doing is useful. It's great for me. And it could be very useful for other landscape professionals who have not created this amount of free time, things like that. So I'm looking at, is it a good thing to go in that direction? Will it require me to grow more? Yes. is that someone I want to be? That's the one I'm uncertain about, because typically dealing with American contractors, they want you to squeeze all the emotion out of it, focus on the American ideal of the professional, which is, as I say, emotionless, focus on form over presence, etc. And I'm not sure that I like being more of that. Will it empower me? Yes. If I do it, I'll probably put it under the umbrella of my nonprofit, which would create capital for the nonprofit. I have hundreds of ideas that I'd love to develop from different documentaries and things. And will it balance me? That's what I'm sorting with, and how to bring it into the right balance. So these questions are the most pertinent questions that I know of how to orient towards a probability field where you can do this, 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 or this. But this one will empower me more than this. This one will balance me. It'll take me in the direction that I need to go. And I'm big on the balance between right and left brain, feminine and masculine energy. And someone I want to be. And I really think, what started me deciding to make this week's project for week 35 is that so often what we are taught to look for, if you do the find the hottest selling tips in business, etc., particularly online, there's a great emphasis on shortcuts and working less, i.e. Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week, which I really enjoyed the book, but the big draw for so many is the idea of getting more for less, shortcutting so that you can do less, figuring out the hacks that would allow you to only, in this case, work 4 hours a week. And this focus on the shortcut, on the easy way, on easy money, for example, fails to address, this most important thing. Will it require me to grow? I'm someone that definitely believes in something more. Not religious. I think most of the God ideas are a bit of a joke. But the idea and the awareness that something continues after death, and that in a well-lived life we're growing every step of the way, leads me to think that this is a more important question than, is it easy money, for example? Will it require me to grow more into someone I want to be, and poise me in the position so that if I change my mind, that's what I'm enjoying about this medium here, is around the time that I feel completely comfortable and effective in this medium, it puts me at a fulcrum where I can go and do documentaries or things on anything that interests me, and do it with 300 to 500 hours of practice under my belt. That does poise me to go in a number of different directions. So that's the exercise for this week, to take this into maybe 2 or 3 decisions that you're considering right now, and I would actually add one second level to the exercise. These are my questions. They make sense to me. They're consistent with my values. do they make sense to you? Yes or no with each of these 4 questions. How would you weight them? And if you have another question, because this is the positive aspect of compete, in the Latin origin of the word, it is to bring out the best in your opponent. When you compete, you bring out the best in each other. You work harder than you would if you were just hitting a tennis ball on your own. You work harder than if you were doing business in a monopoly. You are growing, you are valuing your opponent's gift by the more beautiful they are, the more disciplined they are, the more intelligent they are, the more beautiful, intelligent, and disciplined you must be to meet them or raise them. And I think this is ultimately, our ego goes through these stages. Will I have enough? Do I have enough? Will I have enough? Can I do enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? It kind of goes up from the state of, having, doing to being. Am I enough is the ultimate thing, enough to be loved, worthy of love, etc., etc., in that, as we go up through the hierarchy of needs. And so on that level, I would challenge you to come up with an algorithm that is more beautiful, that requires more of who you are than these questions do, and to use that. But test out where these would lead you. Then create a couple of either additional questions or alternative questions of your own and see where those lead you. And if those questions that you create on your own lead you to a more beautiful, a more compelling existence in some form or another than these, then you have engaged in the healthy aspect of compete, to have the best be brought out in a way that supersedes, what I'm doing. I'd love to hear what that is. I'd love to hear if you use any of this and it sparks something to make a more effective decision that's raising your well-being, challenging you to growth. That's what this year is about, well-being and growth. And I'd also love to hear if you come up with a better set of questions for you, and where that leads you, because of course it's completely irrelevant if you come up with a better list of questions and then don't answer them and stagnate. So I will see you on the next week's journey. Special thanks to all of you joining me for the entire year, and thank you for watching.